I open this budget workshop. First of all, I'd like to thank all the city staff for being here, for all their hours of work and putting this all together. I know this is tedious and complicated and takes a long time, so we appreciate that. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Nolan.
Well, again, I want to thank our visitors who've come also today to kind of learn a little bit more about our budget process. Wanted to just remind, especially our staff and our aldermen, you all know that we've been working on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats we've seen in the city as part of our strategic planning. You know, the budget process in and of itself is a planning document. It's what we plan to spend. And we will, of course, want those expenditures to be aligned with what our goals are for the city. So this is kind of a continuation of the conversation we've started and we've had. We want to make sure that whatever we're spending, we only have a finite amount of money, is being spent in the best possible way to serve our residents and to achieve the goals that we have set and that we're setting right now for the city and our staff. We're going to start today with a conversation about the budget. We have 4 new aldermen, at least 3 aldermen who've never been through the budget process before. And this also should be also educational for visitors who are here today to kind of understand the budgeting process. So I will have Linda, our finance director, go over a quick PowerPoint that kind of talks about the budgeting process, a few concepts, in terms that you might need to know. And then we'll jump into the overview of our budget, talk about primarily tonight the general fund. I don't intend to talk about any capital improvements tonight, in part because some of those things still are just coming in and have just come in. But at the same time, we really need to focus on our operating budget, where we're at financially, the deficit that you'll see here on this cover sheet that we need to address, and also what that 5-year projection looks like if we do not address our operating deficit going forward. So with that, I will have Linda, and I will. I'll do the clickers for you. She started out with a little bit of levity for you.
I made this little PowerPoint like 15 years ago for a newly elected, and I dusted it off today and kind of updated it. But yeah, this was one of my little clip arts I put in there. Where you stop saying ouch every time I cut something out of your budget. So, ha ha ha. I need some kitty laughter out there. All right, why do we have a budget? Well, because the state of Missouri says so. And up there you'll see the statute that indicates that we need to get a budget every year. So I won't bore you with that reading. Okay, political subdivisions use an accounting method known as fund accounting. The definition of a fund accounting is as follows. And here again, it's a system of accounting used primarily by nonprofit or governmental organizations. For these and other similar organizations, it's more important for them to keep a record of how their money was spent rather than how it was earned. Unlike corporations, their accounting records take the form of a collection of funds, each fund having a distinct purpose, ranging from operational expenses to funding the various activities of the organization. Unlike a business, we don't care about abating taxes or anything like that. So. We're just a different kind of animal here. At the City of Troy, we use a cash basis of accounting, which means that the expenditures are recorded when expended and revenues are recorded when received, as opposed to accrual, which is a lot more complicated. All right, these are our funds. We currently have 22 active funds. I don't think I need to read them all to you, but as you see, they are all distinct funds and they all have distinct purposes. So in governmental accounting, fund used to account for all assets and liabilities of a nonprofit entity except those particularly assigned for other purposes, and another more specialized fund is primary operating fund of a governmental unit. Much of the usual activities, this is about the general fund, I should have said that. This is the definition of the general fund. In governmental accounting, the general fund is used to account for all assets, liabilities, and nonprofit entities except those particularly assigned for other purposes and another more specialized fund, such as water, sewer, streets. It is the primary operating fund of this governmental unit. Much of the usual activities of the municipality are supported by the general fund. Examples are the purchase of supplies and meeting operating expenditures. An example of a specialized fund, on the other hand, is the capital projects fund that accounts for financial resources used for the acquisition or construction of major capital facilities. And as you probably all know, the general fund is non-restricted. Its use is at the discretion of the Board of Aldermen.
One thing I would like to add here, and I think it's on the next slide. Oftentimes you'll hear cities refer to the reserves. And we keep a reserve limit or a reserve floor in our general fund, but we do not have a fund, we do, but we'll talk about that maybe later. We don't actually have a fund which is, break only in time of emergency fund. When we talk about, dipping into reserves, really what we're talking about here is the general fund is an unrestricted fund we can spend on anything, and there's a balance in that. There is a balance where we have a policy here in the city of Troy where we intend to keep in the general fund at least 1/2 of the year's operating revenues, or rather operating expenditures, in reserve, and that stays in this fund.
And that's probably comparatively high compared to others. All right, that's kind of small, but the revenues that make up the general fund are our 1 cent local sales tax, real and personal property taxes, our gross receipts taxes, which are also known as franchise taxes, fines and court costs, building permits, FIT, railroad and surtax, cigarette tax, interest earnings, and then all the miscellaneous business licenses, liquor licenses, contractor's licenses, park usage, sales site leases, etc. And that's a fun little graph that isn't too complicated. It's just telling you we'd be in a world of hurt without sales tax. The sales tax is the biggest part of the pie.
You can't really tell much because of the color, but I mean, property tax you can barely even see on there as far as.
Yeah, the franchise tax has really become one of our, the largest. I think it'll come in this year over $100,000. All right, these are the departments of the general fund. Judicial, which covers our prosecuting attorney, executive, which pays for our board of aldermen and our mayor. Administration, which is exactly what it says. The cost of our maintenance facility, or as we like to call it, the shed. Safety, city hall maintenance, which is to take care of this building. Our police department, our municipal court. Inspection, also known as building department. Stormwater management, historic preservation, animal control, parks. Debt service, although debt services, we're done with debt service for now in the general fund. And then transfer out, which is money we transfer from the general fund to any other funds that may need, and in most cases it's the aquatic center. Our street fund is funded by our half-cent transportation tax and the motor vehicle license and gas tax, also known as excise tax. This is totally restricted for only to be used on street maintenance, which would be street construction, street lighting, sidewalks. So this, an example of restricted fund, we cannot take money from the street fund and throw it into the general fund just because we're short.
Well, we do pay for street workers.
Correct, yes, there are salaries that we have as well, and benefits,
Something
tools, backhoes, whatever.
Something that's also very important, especially for our aspiring legislators in the room. This half-cent transportation, tax, and then the gas tax. The gas tax is what is collected by the state of Missouri and remitted back to us. Not necessarily what's collected here, but distributed. I'm not even sure what the formula is for distribution.
It's a proportionate to your population. We've got a big jump after we hit 10,000.
When we get to the revenues talking about gas tax, if the state of Missouri suspends the gas tax as they're discussing, we will lose all that money. So there is no discussion about funding cities for what we're losing, just the state funding itself for what they're losing with this request that's currently before the governor, so. Something that we don't know could happen mid-budget year, something we have to be concerned about.
Okay, the capital improvements fund, that's our newest sales tax. We got that in 2011 to build the pool, and there was also bonds on there to try to get a whole bunch of streets done all at once. We just recently paid that off. Capital improvements tax revenue is legally restricted, funding long-term public infrastructure, facilities, and major equipment. It cannot be used for standard day-to-day governmental operating expenses or salaries. Enterprise funds, those are our little businesses. Our water fund, our sewer fund, our sanitation fund, and our aquatic center are known as an enterprise fund. Hopefully they make enough money to take care of themselves, which is why they're called an enterprise fund. It's not true of the pool, but it's true of the others. And there they are. And then we have the non-major funds. I won't go through these, but you guys know all about them. They're in the cemetery, that's of course a busy one, but the rest are just kind of little increments for things that we like to do. Tourism isn't really, that can't be counted as our money, it just comes here and we send it right back out. And there's a few more. But industrial development, don't let that fool you. There's a balance there of $3,000. It goes way back from, I think, before I was even here, when we were trying to buy the ground over where the sewer plant is, and it probably needs to be updated, and I just have never done the research to see how I can do that, so there really isn't much there, but anyway. Does our budget have to be balanced? Yes or no? Or yes and no? We can spend more than we receive as long as there is a fund balance, also known as reserves, but we cannot spend more than we have. While it's not a good idea to spend down reserves, sometimes reserves are built for the purpose of a future capital expenditure, for example, a well.
This is the one I threw out.
And James wanted to add to this too.
So we talked about this last year. I want to make sure that if there were some questions that I'd gotten about what is the definition of the deficit. As Linda mentioned, we can't spend more money than we have. That's all of the money that we have both coming in and money we have on hand. When we talk about an operating deficit, this is as defined. In my office, I have my graduate school budgeting book. I pulled it out just to give you an exact definition. The amount by which this year's revenues are exceeded by expenditures for the same period. An operating deficit does not take into account any balances left over from prior years, such as from the general revenue or reserves, that may be used to pay off shortfalls. So whenever we spend more money than we're taking in a given year, we consider that an operating deficit.
And I think this is my last slide. This is just the statute that backs up what James just said.
So is there any questions about the funds, the process here as far as where the money can be spent? I know all of you were given, I think last Friday, I sent out each individual expenditure budget. The revenues, I appreciate Jim, I got an email from you earlier, just a little bit ago today, talking about the revenues. We're going to talk about the revenues tonight. That hadn't been in the folder yet, but will be. So, first thing we're going to bring up here is the cover sheet that you have on your packets with the yellow lines across it, and that's the where did we go on here? That's that. Well, I didn't get it in. I guess I don't have it in here, so I apologize. You guys all have on in front of you this sheet, correct?
Yes.
Well, do this. That's where we're gonna go next. So what we're gonna talk about, actually, I'll have to go load it. I don't know why it's not on the SharePoint. It's not called that.
Is it the budget projection? What is that? The second one.
No, that's the projection that we're talking about here. So,
Should be in your email. You want to say?
yeah. I don't know what that file is called.
Budget summary, I think searching for the word budget summary. Here it is.
Yeah. Hopefully, I know this is not the biggest, but it's not enough yet for everybody out there.
It's on the lower left-hand corner of the screen, or right-hand corner, sorry, you probably push the little plus to zoom in a little bit.
Get it higher and higher.
Oh, yeah, I can zoom in on that, yeah. I was just trying to get a bigger one.
Oh, I got you, okay, sorry.
There's so much at the top.
I don't know how to get rid of all of this. Try to do that right.
F11,
Look at you, man.
well,
Has to be a young guy.
Gen Z.
You guys are good for something.
Is it not working?
No.
Roman, it's on.
With function. No.
That works, yeah.
Function.
There you go.
There you go. Good job.
I'm good for something.
You are the man.
Oh, let's get young one.
So this is our budget summary for fiscal year 26-27. You'll see here we have, starting in the first column, what we expect the estimated fund balance to be July 1st of 2026. And this is again for each fund. What our estimated revenues are for this upcoming year. We'll talk about how we come up with those numbers. Transfers in, as Linda had mentioned, some of these funds require additional revenues transferred from other funds, typically out of the general fund to those funds, because the general fund, again, is not restricted. So that money can go to supplement, for instance, the aquatic center, which often does, always does. What our estimated expenditures are, and that's based on the budget request that you have all been given as part of the SharePoint documents that were shared with you. The transfers out, which you'll see is out of the general fund, and then you can see the same amount essentially going back into the aquatic fund. And then we calculate what the net change to the fund balance is. So again, what is the operating deficit? The fund balance is going down $968,000 according to this budget. So what we have in the fund, $5,860,000, we're going to spend $968,000 more than we brought in, therefore requiring the general fund to supplement those expenditures, those funds, so that we are not out of line with the state requirements, which is to say that we can't spend more money than we bring in and have on hand. So the general fund is again, the unrestricted fund. It's the one that pays for police, the administration, parks. It's obviously the largest operating fund. Capital improvements, largest fund, but it's not an operating fund. Again, that's for specific improvements of a capital nature. And that is where the general fund is where most of our people, our personnel salaries, benefits, all of those things are located, and most of the expenditures in that fund is made up of personnel costs. Is the largest amount by far. So.
The transferred it out to 299.4. Where did that go?
To the aquatic center. To the aquatic center. Looks like it rounded up on one of the cells.
And did, yeah, they should.
No, it's $50.
Yeah.
Well, that's in the slush fund, right? No, I'm sure that the cells rounded up, so it's,
I'll just
we don't have any other, I mean, from the general fund, that's the only transfer. I'm sure it's I can look, probably, I don't know if it'll show me, but it's probably a.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. Or it might just be a typo on my part. Because that isn't fit by anything else.
What's
I
that?
drew this, so I probably just messed it up.
So, as we've talked about before, this is our big, our difficulty this year, I will say. So to go through and make clear where our budget numbers are coming from, what assumptions we're using, keeping in mind everything in this budget is based on an assumption. Forecasting things, is difficult. When it comes to revenues, forecasting revenues, we have to take in all the information we have with the best assumptions we have available, and we'll use that to forecast our revenues. We do know, it's pretty easy, we do know what the valuation of our property is because we got an estimate from the assessor's office. So we know taking the valuations of the properties in our city, multiplying it by our tax rate, we have a pretty good idea, assuming people pay their property taxes, what the value or what the amount of money we're going to get in personal property and real estate taxes. But as you saw on that graph during this presentation, the largest portion, almost 72% of our money comes from sales tax. That is very difficult to estimate because it's highly volatile. It's based a lot, oftentimes, both on economic development in our community, but then also national conditions which we don't have any control over, and we just necessarily could not foresee, especially going out, 13 months from now. Something to keep in mind, we did actually put in, I think, did we say 3%? What did we say?
For sales tax?
For sales tax? 2%. We did put in a 2% increase for sales tax. Last year we put in an escalator. I know that there's been criticisms in past administrations of not putting escalators into the sales tax numbers. We did do that last year. We did that again this year. We did do a little bit better than expected last year, this past year, on our sales tax. We expect that largely to be related to inflationary costs of items at the store. The store items are more expensive. You're still buying the same amount of eggs, milk, bread that you bought last year. You're spending more money on it, which also means you're paying more sales tax on it. So our sales tax numbers went up a little bit, just a tiny bit more than we expected, but they did go up. This upcoming year, we really don't know what that situation will be. We hope that inflation won't continue, but if economic conditions continue to be questionable, people may scale back their purchasing, which is something we have to be cognizant of. Being conservative in revenue estimates, I think, is always a much better play than being overestimating of those revenue estimates. I will tell you, we did not specifically try to figure in 7 Brew, which we know is opening. We did not specifically try to I guess Culver's is, has been approved, but we haven't seen that. Or I wouldn't say it's not been approved, but we know that that's coming. We know that that's still working through. We've got a couple more that will probably be on the next couple of agendas. We hope that that's going to be helpful, but we know that'll be helpful. But I want to put it in perspective because I've had a lot of people bring up to me, well, can we just develop our way out of this, this deficit? So the general fund is funded by a 1 cent sales tax. So that means, for every $10,000 or for every $1 million in sales at a new business, we're only getting $10,000. So I I know a lot of people aren't necessarily in the business, but if we can't disclose to you individually, and I don't know if if the new aldermen know this, we do know exactly how much sales each one of Walgreens, Walmart, everybody in town generates. We're not allowed to disclose that information. We use it internally, but we're not allowed to disclose that publicly. But I can tell you, if you just look at it, Google it, national averages, how much these stores make, your average convenience store, your average coffee shop. I can tell you from what we dealt with, in other communities, what we expect 7 Brew or somebody to make into the general fund, $15,000 to $20,000 a year. So how many 7 Brews do you need to make up $1 million? That's a lot of 7 Brews. It's not much better for Culver's. I mean, maybe double that. So any other stores that you're getting, of the like nature, it's a lot of economic development to make up $960,000 and have 1 cent for every $1 million. Well, 1 cent for every dollar, at least. It takes $1 million to get 10,000. It's a long way to go. So, is there any questions at this point about how we got our revenue numbers?
So you said sales tax last year is doing better than expected. Is that fiscal year 26?
That's for, right. So our fund
And that's
balance,
through March, April, or where are you
It's
at?
on a cash basis, it's right up till, we get our sales tax in the first 7 days of the month. So we have 11 months to do sales tax. And based on that, we're about a little over 3% ahead of budget.
And then
No, ahead of last year, which is about 1% ahead of budget.
do you, so say going into FY 27, you're guessing, but you have projections, so we think based on historical, in July of 2026, we should get this number, and then when the money comes in, okay, we actually are doing better. So you kind of see that trend. Do you have that now?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, all right.
one thing that, so as Linda mentioned, we get our money in the first part of the month. What we collected the first part of this month was 2 months ago's money typically. So, but in every budget, comparatively year over year, we're still comparing, if you calendarize it and took those monies on a monthly basis, all of our monthly, comparisons would include, the same fluctuations, the seasonal fluctuations that you'd see, every year. People start, shopping for Christmas stuff, nowadays, August, September, depending on your spouse, they start shopping pretty early for that stuff. You'll start seeing, increases and then trailing off after the holidays, etc. So the one thing you can't account for, if there are fluctuations in the economy, if we have a bad economy, crashes or gas prices don't go down, and people decide to slow down their spending for Christmas this fall, one of the problems that we always have is it doesn't necessarily, our money is not at all a straight line across, January through December, as far as the revenues we get. And anybody who's ever worked in retail would recognize that certain times of the year, it's feast and famine. There's a lot of retailers that make all of their money for the year, the last 4 months of the year. That's where they're making their profits. That's where they're making. So if something happens and all of a sudden we've got a bad, September, October, November, December, it's not going to rebound. It's not going to be like, oh, things are better in January. Now everybody's going out and spend a ton of money. No, you missed an opportunity. Nobody goes back and goes, well, I'll spend more money because I didn't spend it on Christmas. Because, the economy was doing bad. So those seasonal issues are something to keep in mind, and then obviously the economic conditions are something we got to keep in mind.
Where's the marijuana tax that we don't know what the amount is? Where does it go?
So the sales tax.
It's just going to commingle with the 1% sales tax.
I think I do have so I have a sheet here I wanted to show you. This is our sales tax.
said that goes under the whole 1% tax?
Correct. No, it's just in the sales tax.
Hmm?
It's in the sales tax.
It
And it goes to,
it goes to the general fund.
it goes to the general fund, I'm sorry, yes.
Which is 11.52% higher for the month of April.
So here is, as Linda mentioned, here's our 1% sales tax from 2020 to 2026. And you can see
That's
that,
in our book we got last month.
you can see that those numbers, you know, they vary, you know, seasonally, and current, you know, our current year over prior years, 3.4%. Actual over our prior year, I think, did we budget 2.5 or
I
3?
think it was just 2.
So we did exceed that, and as I mentioned, the increase, I'm going to guess is mostly related to, again, inflation. With inflation being higher over this past few years. And what people spend in Troy is typically staples, right? I mean, if you're the city of Chesterfield and your sales tax is spread out over Neiman Marcus and Saks and every other thing out there that people are shopping on the outlet malls, if the economy's bad, people may not go out and shop at those things. You probably are affected a lot more by inflation than Troy, when our big sales tax generators are Kroger, Walmart, Baumgars, places that it doesn't matter how bad the economy is, you still gotta feed your family. You're gonna go buy groceries. You're still gonna buy food for your animals. You're still going to buy things from the Tractor Supply for farmers. All of these things, I think, are probably less affected by inflation in the sense that people are not going to pull back from spending on them. And then when the inflation goes up, you know, obviously the percentage that we're getting more collections on that as well. So, but as you can see, you know, sales tax has been going up, not as much as, you know, needed to keep up with the rise in subdivisions being built, services being required, population growth. You're really only talking about from 2020 to 2026, $700,000, $780,000 in growth. That's $780,000 in sales tax growth, and that's where almost all of our revenues really come from. Compared to the growth in population, streets, and services that have been required over the last 6 years. And you'll see we get a 1% sales tax for the general fund. 0.5% goes to transportation, as we mentioned earlier. That is to pay for streets, a number of our public works guys. Capital improvements, again, all goes to the actual physical capital improvements that we have. And then the cart fund distribution, that was the gas tax. So the one thing that has gone up considerably, which is one of the things that has helped us considerably this past year, something we did not and could not foresee, was that our franchise tax, which is also known as really a utility tax, that we charge only commercial operators here in Troy. Ameren got a rate increase last year in the middle of our budget, or right before our budget. And so their rates went up, your bills went up, but then our taxes, as the same percentage, obviously our revenues went up because the rates went up for Ameren. So you can see, and I would imagine, this Ameren franchise tax probably goes up only when Ameren gets a rate increase. We haven't had any, large increase in commercial users that would have, increased that amount. So I'm sure if we went back year over year, those increases in our revenues are directly correlated with increases in Ameren's rates. So, but that is a as Linda mentioned, that has become a significant part of our general fund revenues as well. It's the second largest part of our general fund revenues. So, I can't get out of this. What did you do? What did you do, Mika? I did this.
Function F11 should do it again, should take it out. Still not working.
I can't see it. It's not like. There we go. Thank you. Is there any questions specifically about any of the funds or revenues we've discussed or talked about?
The franchise taxes, they go to the general funds?
Yes.
Yep.
That's the second largest contributor to the
That
general fund.
includes gross receipts tax, which is on telephone, cable franchise, which just keeps going down, 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 and then the utility tax.
For the franchise tax, is that tax applied toward industrial developments as well, or just commercial?
Again, commercial.
It's commercial, I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be.
I would assume that is.
Yeah,
Anything but residential.
Yeah.
not really, yeah, but when. I don't know why we did that.
What is the rate? Are we at 4%?
Fine.
45. For cap, 6 is the cap, right?
That I don't know.
I think 6 is the cap. I mean, most communities have, you know, franchise tax across the board, not just on commercial. We
So like
put,
Walmart pays 5% of their total bill.
correct. Toyota, Walmart, Kroger.
Woody's,
Is that
Woody's,
Woody's?
Woody's and their big refrigeration systems.
Yeah.
I was just confused because you had said commercial, I didn't know if that included stuff zoned as industrial as well. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
for the
don't
most,
guess she does.
I would guess, typically speaking, I mean, it's broken down either to residential, commercial being a
Oh,
catch-all.
I got you, okay.
So, as we mentioned, I will show you. So, across all funds, and I'll point to, we do have some large expenditures that we're expecting, you know, both sewer and sewer plant. We'll talk about that stuff more when it comes to capital. We have the SRF, which is the state revolving fund. That's, you know, we're basically our debt service on the new sewer
Well,
plant.
it's actually, it's the depreciation.
Oh, that's right, the
It's a depreciation replacement fund, and I don't even know at what point you can actually touch that. That is
Yeah.
part of our bond covenant, and we have to keep that. I need to find out more about how that works, but I would assume it might be for the life of the
I think it is,
land,
because we were
which is
looking at
till-
it.
which is till 2051.
Most of us will probably not, I don't think any of us will be here.
I may not even be alive.
So, is there any questions about that?
What happens with the water that it's always been a moneymaker? What happened?
In this case, I mean, these are capital improvements. I would assume this is probably to do with the,
Well, we've got lots of water main replacement, we've done the new well was the last 2 years, and we've got all kinds of water main replacements going on and we continue to have, so.
water line that's getting moved over on for the 47 expansion, 47 widening. We've had to move our water line.
We will get that money back.
Yeah, we're gonna get paid back for that from MoDOT, but we have to expend it, and then we'll eventually get reimbursed.
But we haven't raised those rates in a really long time. Last time we raised rates, it was just the sewer.
The reimbursement from MoDOT, how long will that take?
I don't know, I went ahead and billed them. I spoke with the guy, the engineer up there, and asked him what he needed from me, and I got it to him, and I don't know.
It's,
Probably not very long, actually.
yeah, so going back to, water and sewer, that money is encumbered specifically for those purposes. We're not in any danger of not being able to operate either of those with our current revenues and expenditures. Really, those expenditures, what this represents and what we'll ultimately have to talk about in a future meeting is how much money do we have available to continue to upgrade water lines, water mains, And a lot of this, as Linda mentions, is just a maintenance issue. Wells that have to be fixed or what do they call these? The pumps that have to get replaced, on occasion. Some things that we keep extras of in case, we have a backup issue or we need to have a force main, have a pump replaced. Those things happen, and we try to just put money in there to make sure we're able to do that quickly and respond to those issues as they happen. The other things are really capital planning, and Woodard and Kern has helped us with a number of items which we'll again bring up at the capital improvement discussion. It'll be a conversation about how many things we need to update in our current sewer collection system, our treatment system, and then also the water system. And that's really, those things will all come typically out of 40 and 41, which is the water and sewer plant. We have in the past used capital improvements to supplement that. Personally, I don't believe that is something that I wouldn't do that except at a last resort, or to lend the money from capital improvements to water and sewer, strictly because water and sewer should be self-funding. Those are enterprise funds that if the sewers need that much work, then the sewer rates gotta go up. If the water lines, if the water quality, if there's water issues that cannot be funded through the water rates, then those need to be looked at and adjusted. Capital improvements, really, we should be talking more about streets, infrastructure, things that spur economic development, things that help have a return on our investment for the city and for our community. And also, since we don't have a parks fund, a dedicated parks tax, also capital improvements for some of our parks and recreational items as well. So,
Jared, what's the normal cost when they gotta replace a pump at a lift station?
Depends the size of the pump. Some of the big lift stations could cost you $50,000 for a pump. Some of them could be $3,500 for a pump, just depending on the size. And I think the number you're seeing in our fund, which that sounds like in a future meeting, we'll get to that, but some of our projects can be multi-year funded. I mean, you're showing $6 million here, where it might be a deal where that could be paid out over 3 years. So once we get to that point, I don't think that's tonight.
I was just kind of curious, because I don't think we have that many lift stations.
There's 13 that we operate.
13?
Yeah.
I'd have to ask Linda about the $6 million, if that's.
I think that's including your 47 project. You've got our operations budget. There's a Headworks building at 47, I think, got thrown in there.
But I don't think that has the Bluffview line. That wouldn't have the line, I don't think, for upgrading the Bluffview line that we're talking about.
Okay.
I don't think so. That alone,
Was that, yeah.
that alone is $6 million. So.
Well, they fixed it.
What's that?
This is almost a 6,000 foot replacement of a failing sewer line that runs behind Bluffview.
Right close to where the storage units are.
Where they used to be, yeah. Runs behind there all the way to 61, all the way behind Bluffview to where the old plant was, yeah.
Because they had a problem right below the bridge where it was.
We did replace that section a few years ago, but now the whole line, it's a project to replace it. It's actually already been designed.
Because I thought somewhere right there behind the middle of Bluffview was a total closure.
It is.
I didn't know if they addressed that issue, but
Well, that would be, as
That's
Jared
part
mentioned,
of
that would
it,
be
yeah.
part of the capital improvement discussion that we did just get that last week, the engineering and the number. We can, as Jared said, that could be a multi-year project. There are
You
options.
can do it in sections, yeah.
Yeah. There's options for funding either through the state revolving fund, which is a very low interest rate, or go out to private equity or not private equity, but private funding through some financial institutions, through revenue bonds or some other sort of COPs, which are certificates of participation, other ways to fund it. It just depends on how long we want to stretch out the repayment on that, and it is a considerable amount of money. And again, I think it's something that we should be discussing about making sure that the sewer and water funds, as the enterprise funds that they are, should be right-sized to pay for the work that's being done in the sewer and water, in the sewer and water utility.
Jared, I got another quick question. With that, all that behind Bluffview, they ever get all the I&I, so.
So that's a big part of this project.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
when
that
it-
I&I.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I want to say in public, but big storms, instead of it coming in the line water, a lot of, we're having issues where things are coming out of the lines. So it's something that we need to prioritize. And like I said, in design, it's already, the size of the pipe's almost been doubled for future. Anything that can go north of the highway or anything like that. It replaces that whole line. It's gonna be ran along the side of the existing one.
Stands for inflow and infiltration.
Any other questions about the revenues or expenditures? So as I mentioned tonight, I think the most important thing, and we could be here for a week if we wanted to go through every line item, but I encourage you to ask or inquire about every line item as we can put those up on the screen. I think what needs to be recognized here is, and you can look again through the individual cover pages of the departments, again, focusing only on those fed by the general fund. We have got to find a way to address the $9 million or the $968,000 deficit. Now, the reality is, as I mentioned, there's not going to be in this year or in any near subsequent year an economic growth that's going to take that and solve that problem. So we've talked about last year, this board decided to make some, not this board, but the board, decided to make some changes to our benefits, which included significant, let's see, where's this? Get this up here. This is all in the cloud, I guess that's probably why it's slow.
No, I got it.
So, I've got, which I've created last year for the board, I've updated for you just recently with our most recent projections. This is a can you believe what it said so? That's going to be tough. This is a document which I created which helps identify 5-year projections of where the city will be with said deficits. So currently, as we saw on the previous summary sheet, we'll be at about $4.9 billion on June 30th of 2027.
You can blow that up a little bit.
Yep, I'll blow it up for you. I'll show you the whole thing here. So,
It's fine.
just so, well, I'll point out what's on the sheet and then we'll go over the numbers. So, I'll blow it up, but I'll show you from fiscal year 2027, so that's ending June 30th of 2027 to June 30th of 2031. We have the fund balance for the general fund. We have estimated general fund revenues. Now, this is, we put in a modest increase of 1.5%, being, and that's across all revenues, because we don't really know. This would be property tax, personal property tax, sales tax, utility tax, or franchise fees. these are the assumptions we used. We put in a modest increase for the general fund revenues. This is automatically calculating what the deficit is, what the revenues over expenditures are. These are our expenditures, assuming raises every year for individual staff, plus I put in formulas here for escalators to go up with the raises every year as well. Then we look down here as possible ways to alter the trajectory here of this deficit by enhancing revenues through either a rollback, or rather ending the rollback of taxes, property tax, which I'll talk about in just a second, the passage of a use tax, which our most recent numbers from the Missouri Municipal League is that our sales tax, 1 cent sales tax, they expect about 20% of that is the current estimate to be the amount you would get in use tax. That's an average. Some cities it's 50%, some cities it's 5%, but they said that that's a pretty good number for what they think in the city of Troy, almost $800,000 additional revenue. So the pool, if we had to close the pool in order to save revenue, that would save us about $191,000 a year. If there were additional increases in sales tax that went out to the voters, this is about how much money we get for every quarter cent, given our current numbers. Last year, we added almost $300,000 to the general fund deficit by changing to loggers L6. So, is that correct? Yeah. So what we've done here is we've added in what it would be if we did the 4% contribution, requiring all of our staff to contribute 4% of their salaries towards their retirement. It would save us $117,000. If we required them to do 2%, and according to loggers, these are the options. We don't just make up these percentages. You can have them contribute 2%, 4%, or no percent. These are other options that we could do to, again, increase revenues to offset this deficit. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is our current deficit, or this is our current deficit is $968,000. The fund balance at the end of the year is what we're currently estimating is about $4.9 million. We talked about a general fund reserve policy, which, according to the current policy of the city, we are required to keep 1/2 of our general fund expenditures in the general fund as a reserve. That is the level that we've set, which does vary from city to city. I will tell you, for cities who are heavily dependent on sales tax, because it's such a volatile tax, that a larger reserve is usually something that cities like that typically adopt because of the volatility. And to put it in perspective, if Walmart decided to close and move up Highway 47 just outside of our city, I mean, we'd be bankrupt this year. So, just like that, the amount of money we would lose from one business because we are so dependent on sales tax. So, this is what we're trying to project out with our current given increases in revenues, taking a shot at it, given expected increases in general fund expenditures. This is more illustrative than anything because I want people to see the trajectory, but there are years where health insurance goes way up. These expenditures could be off the charts. There's years where the health insurance has not gone up as much as we thought, and we've ended up better on expenditures. Nobody can see 5 years out, but this puts in a lot of good data points to show the trend. So, with that, by June 30th, or more like by December of 2028, we're going to be below where the general fund reserve should be. And by the end of 2031, we could be one fiscal year out from just not making it through the year. Now, these are assumptions based on actually spending everything we say we're going to spend. Why have we not had the deficits that we've expected so far? We've had a huge deficit this past year. It was on 360,000.
We will probably have a 350,000.
Yeah. So we're expecting to end up about $350,000 in deficit for this year. Why did we not end up with the deficit we expected? Well, because we're down 8 police officers. Revenue did go up slightly. Some of our expenses didn't come in where we thought they would be. Those are good things. But as long as you're expecting to hire officers, you have to budget for them. As long as you're expecting to have expenses, you have to budget for that. If we don't hire the cops, we never can find somebody to fill those spots. We had $70,000 in people we tried to hire for parks, but we couldn't. Just couldn't find people to do the job. We just worked harder. Those sorts of things we ended up saving money on. So we ended up better off than projected. But the truth is, a budget document is what our plan is. Our plan is to hire X amount of people to do the work in parks so that parks can do their job. We plan to have X amount of police officers on the street so that we plan to have the officers, giving us the level of service that we're expecting. Doesn't mean that it happens. We've had several retirements. We've had several vacancies. All of those things have been beneficial on the cost savings aspect. It's not been good on the service aspect. That's put a tremendous amount of stress on our officers who are now picking up extra shifts and working obviously harder to fill in the gaps. Same with our parks guys. We've got to still keep the cemetery cut and parks manicured and the ball fields manicured. So there, every one of those dollars that we saved there, and in one way, it also ended up being a kind of a service, a disservice to either the staff or to the citizens, because maybe we didn't spend the money, we didn't necessarily get the service. So you can see why this is so important. We are, if we budget with what we expect to budget, full staff of police officers, full staff here at City Hall, Parks, Police Department, this is the deficit we're going to have. Now we're going to start this budget July 1st. We're not going to hire 9 cops July 1st. So is it really going to be exactly that? No. But you also don't write budgets going, well, we'll stagger that throughout the year because we don't know when we're going to hire these people. That's just not how budgeting is. If you don't believe me, I can borrow my book. So it's been 15 years since I read it, maybe longer now, 20. But I still remember that. You don't do that. You budget for what you would expect. Because the other part of that is, next year, if you are at full staff, you've got to know that you're in a place that you can afford it from the beginning. We budget for only 7 officers and we think we can make it. When we hire all those officers next year, we have a full complement, then we're going to really see the pain. So, is there any questions about these projections or these estimates? This document that I made, which I'll send to you, you can play with it, it's kind of fun. Well, it's scary, so I wouldn't say it's fun, but what's fun about it is, and I apologize for the new alderman. I want to make sure that you guys see this, because this is key too. Here are the property tax rates for municipalities in our immediate Lincoln County area. It's a good to live in Troy. People are building really nice homes, far more expensive than many of the homes you find in Troy, the Moscow Mills. And they are paying 3-4 times the amount of taxes to the city as we are for the property tax. So you'll see here 17 cents, and I can explain what that means. 17 cents with a 15-cent rollback. So property taxes in the state of Missouri, we don't use the term millage, which is another term that others, other places may use. We charge you taxes based on a rate per $100 of your assessed value. So if your home is, I'll keep it simple. If your home is worth $100,000, the assessor in the state of Missouri assesses residential property at 19%. So your property is assessed for $19,000. You're then paying a rate, 17 cents, for every $100 that your house is assessed. 19,000, now it's only 19,000, yeah. So 19,000, so then you'll take it down to $190. And then you'll take that $190 and you'll multiply it by 1706, and you can find out what you pay to the city of Troy, not to the city, not to the county. We won't get into how much money the county and the school districts and the fire districts get off of, your taxes. I can't find my calculator actually. But I'll put it in perspective for you. For I'll just say a $400,000 house in Troy, if it's worth 400, that means it's assessed for 76. That means you're paying 17 cents for every $760, which means you paid the city of Troy $129 for your $400,000 home. So that's kind of how this works. Now, I'll tell you, we as a city approved a tax rate of 32 cents for every 100 assessed value.
The voters?
The voters did. The voters approved a 32-cent rate years ago. Somewhere along the lines, the board decided they would roll back the rate voluntarily. That rollback is this 15-cent rollback that I'm referencing here. This is not an assessment year. This is a year that we get to set the rates. Last year, the county assessors reassessed the value of your property, set it. Now we know what the values of properties are. We will now set a tax rate up to this level. Every year we set the rate, we set it at whatever we want to set it at, under 32 cents or below. This, not every year, I'm sorry, every 2 years. This is where we've been setting it. This has been the rate. We have the ability, without a voter approval, because the voters have already approved this, we have the ability to go ahead and go back to the voter-approved numbers, which if we went only from a 15-cent rollback to a 10-cent rollback, we would gain another $141,000 in revenue. If we rolled it back only 5 cents instead of 15, we'd have 283. And if we got rid of the rollback and went all the way up to 32 cents, which is still half of Moscow Mills, less than half of Moscow Mills, we would get an extra $424,000 in taxes for the city, which obviously would do some serious, cut seriously into this deficit we have. So on this, which I've created for you, we can talk about doing things like adding this $420,000. Well, of course I won't do that. So, if we decided to take the rollback away this year, what this does, it adds this number in here, and it changes going forward what the trajectory of these numbers look like. Our deficit would go from 900,000 plus to 543. It would take D-Day out from 2029 to 2031, but we still obviously are losing money at a rate that at least in the short term is better, but in the long term, we still must find something to do over the next couple of years to address the deficit. You can do this with everything we have here. We can close down the pool as well. Nobody wants to do that. My kids are gonna kill me, because I told them we moved you in that pool. They're gonna say, Dad, what did you do to us? Well, now, obviously, our deficit's gone down considerably. D-Day is pushed much, much further out, giving us time, obviously, to address the existing and continuing deficit, but at least D-Day is not 2 years from now, it's 5, 6 years from now. I will send this to you, something that I would encourage you, all you have to do is plug in any of these numbers down here in the year that they will be adopted. And so all of that's calendarized to make sure that the earlier we adopt it, obviously, the better it is. The later we adopt it, it doesn't affect us until later years, obviously making that much more accurate. But it also does show you, and I think it's important, that if you wait for some of these fixes, if we waited to not do a rollback, for instance, this year, we decided we'll wait till the next opportunity in 2029. You'll still see, at that point, we've already hemorrhaged so much money in the first few years. By the time we start catching up, we're already in the red. I mean, we're already below those reserve numbers. I did get a question earlier about what if we decided to go back to the original L4? You could do that, save $277,000 plus a year. I mean, I will admit, there are so many opportunities for escalators that could still be added into this that are not, because there's just a lot of assumptions to be made. So it's 277, but that would slightly increase every year because the cost of the pension goes up with the amount of money in our payroll. But if we were to do that, we couldn't do that this year. We would have to no earlier than fiscal year 2028 implement that, because Blockers does not let you change once you've changed. The first time they don't let you change for 2 years, is what we've been told. So that would affect any retirees. So Dave, you're fine.
Trust me, I know.
Dave's like, get out of here before you guys do anything drastic. But again, 277, 679, you could just take that number. Does that make a difference? It does. Does it solve the problem? It just pushes us out to 2030 and then drop higher. It obviously slows everything down, but we obviously have, given what we know and given what we're projecting, obviously the current budget request is unsustainable. As I mentioned before, the large majority of these expenditures in the general fund come from personnel. We can cut, every training opportunity, every subscription to ICMA for city managers, the GFOA for the finance officers, our city clerk. You can cut all that stuff out, save $20,000, $30,000, and it doesn't put a dent in this unless you talk about cutting people. It's the only way to get anywhere near reducing this deficit. So when it comes to cutting expenditures, or when it comes to raising revenues, there's going to either probably have to be a combination of the two, or a serious look at one of these increases. Now, to keep it in perspective, the only thing that we have complete control over, the only things, is loggers, which can't come into effect until fiscal year 2028. So saving money by either requiring contributions into loggers for our current employees, closing the pool because it has a $191,000 operating deficit. That's how much we give them more than they take in. And then this year, or then again in fiscal year 2029, we have the opportunity to unilaterally roll back, or rather end the rollback of our property tax rate. Everything else, use tax passage, which is currently on the ballot, which we'll talk about in a second, a sales tax increase, so going back and asking for a different type of increase, also requires, of course, voter approval. Or, I didn't put on here because it's kind of duplicitous, you could always go back and ask to raise this voter-approved cap, which we could do. You can get into the rollback, and then ask for voters to raise it even higher, maybe closer to Moscow Mills. If we were closer to Moscow Mills, we would have almost no deficit. If we had the same property tax rate as Moscow or Ellsbury, we'd be not having this conversation. We'd already been done and gone home and watched the Oklahoma City game. So,
what's the major issue with the pool? Is it mechanical or is it just like a membership, both?
all amenities when it comes to Parks and Rec are always losers. And ask Wentzville, they're built the Mecca, recreation facilities they had. You can't sell enough candy bars, you can't sell enough memberships, you can't sell enough daily entries to ever pay the cost for utilities, operations, and then maintenance and future maintenance. So
How much is like a single person walking into the pool?
$8. That's pretty much in line with everybody. You raise it too much, nobody comes. It's too low, you're not making any of your nest egg back. So.
When the pool was proposed, was it meant to break even? Like, it wasn't meant to actually operate as a business would?
No, man, it's just to break even.
I wasn't here, but if anybody ever said that, they were lying to me. I mean, we built.
Yeah, the guy that helped us with our bonds, he said, the best years that you have at a pool is when yours is closed, because of rain or something. That's when you do okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any like numbers of like their seasonal total of people that come there?
Yeah, it's usually not.
You know?
I mean, it's kind of hard. I have the pay numbers, in numbers as far as who buys season passes, how many of those we sell, but obviously those don't pay, so I can get you year by year paying visitors kind of thing.
Because I mean, the one thing that, like we always talk about, there's not enough things for kids to do, and that's just what I hate to even think about the pool in that sense of a cut.
But in all fairness, I didn't think about that until 2 o'clock in the morning, so.
But like,
when I sent an email going, what's the P&L in the pool?
But even I've noticed, just taking my family there over the last few years, that attendance seems to be declining when we go there, in the summertime. So
A lot of it too is weather driven. I mean, some of those days when it's 95 degrees, I mean, there'll be cars not in the parking lot here.
Yeah.
Days like opening weekend, we sell a lot of season passes, but not many visitors just coming in decorative. So.
I guess if there's an E. coli alert at Lake Lincoln, then everybody's here. If there's not, then they go over there. We get more people in the pool if we.
Linda, what was that tax that was passed for building the pool?
The capital improvements tax.
Capital improvement tax, and that was destined to be used for the construction of the pool and what else?
This, we did issue bonds that year to do a whole bunch of streets at one time. So that was the streets and then the pool.
Because one of the main selling factors of that tax was the pool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And We paid for a
And that was
pool.
in 2010?
Or 11, I can't remember. I mean, the bonds
Well-
are called 2011, so.
Yeah. 'cause
Yeah,
it-
it started in 2010.
11, we moved here in 10.
Yeah, you moved here in 10, but that year between 10 and 11, I wasn't on the board, and that's when everything got passed. And 11, when I come back, is when they had the groundbreaking ceremony for that.
James, regarding the aquatic center for this upcoming year, when I was going through the line item budget last night, got at my notes, but
And thank you for your email at 4 in the morning. I'm glad I'm not the only one up all night.
you're welcome. There was a line item budget for improvements to the pool. I'm wondering, could we use capital improvements for that versus the aquatic center budget?
Yeah. So, kind of like we said, the general fund being unrestricted typically is the only fund that you see, those significant transfers in and out because it can go anywhere. Capital improvements, we may see, when we have a conversation more about it, we may see capital improvement money flowing into sewer and water fund to pay for capital improvements in sewer and water, or we could, leave it in capital improvements and just pay for those improvements as a capital improvement out of those funds, so long as it's being used for a physical capital improvement versus an operating cost, personnel cost.
Well, this was a renovation of some sort.
You're probably talking about the paint.
Yeah, some sort of sealant or something.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it would cover that or not.
Oh, you're talking about the ceiling
Yeah.
of the pool?
No,
So I thought we were gonna do that next year.
sandblast paint.
Right, we're gonna do that next year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, this coming budget.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Well, we talked about,
It's all coming
we talked about 2 weeks ago, trying to get it, we're not gonna get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you, yeah. So, what was the amount on that?
I think it was 70,000, somewhere around that.
That was a combination of two,
46.
was that 40
Was it?
something?
Okay.
And then the umbrellas or whatever.
Yeah, awning covers. Those
Yeah, that was it.
Those are original.
Yeah.
Typically, maintenance stuff is not
Gotcha.
sandblasting and painting. If you buy a whole lot of umbrellas, yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
So, and so like last year, we started this conversation with a $1.3 million deficit in operating and general fund. And the first thing I did was I took $300,000 out that could have gone to capital, and we paid it out of capital. Because we had money in capital, we just didn't have it in the general fund. Where we can do that, we've already done that, but I appreciate, looking into that.
I mean, that's helpful to me. So
Yeah.
history, sometimes history's not helpful. That was.
Zing!
But the capital improvements, that's how we pay for the pool.
That's how we pay for it
And
initially.
right now, the capital improvement tax is bringing in estimated 2.2
But,
billion.
Yeah, as Linda mentioned, the pool's paid for
But that's what got that tax passed in 2011, the pool. That's what
Oh,
voters, I
yeah.
would say voters are, a pool.
Yeah.
And then the ongoing ramifications, so I'm trying to we're losing all this money every year, but it's kind of a give and take, to me.
I can tell you, we didn't have any of that stuff in Garden Prairie, but we talked about it, and every year the thing was, yes, we can afford to build it, no, we can't afford to operate it. And we had a pool in Ferguson, which we've had for 75 years. We built a new one early on in my career. It was easy to build it, pain in the butt always to operate it. I built a community center, but when we built it, we asked for a tax increase for both the capital and the operating. Because we knew, we could go ask somebody for bonds to build it, how are we gonna get this program, right? I don't know what was contemplated when they sold this to the voters, but we do know that $191,000 more than we sell at the concession stand, and more than what we sell in memberships, is the cost to the general fund.
For the most part, those types of amenities to communities don't make money. Parks don't make money. We could sell all our parks and put in apartment complexes. We could generate some funds doing that, but it would be an asinine thing to do.
It's one-time money, and that's not gonna fix our problem.
No, you'll have the money incoming all the time, And if there was a proper legislation to the state of Missouri, they would start taxing apartment complexes and rental homes as commercial, because that's exactly what they are. But that'll never happen because that gets into the pockets of the wealthy. But, like I said, the skate park, it's lost money. There's a 10-foot black vinyl chain link fence somewhere. I don't know where it went. We've had problems with destruction on that. I don't know if Ryan was here when they had the 4-wheel drives up there moving everything.
I wasn't here.
Yeah, some kids in the middle of the night decided they wanted to rearrange the skate park. They cut a hole in the fence because they didn't like the fence. That's why we took down the fence. Any of those amenities, you're not gonna make money on. It's just what they are. So if you wanna have something for the kids to do, that's why we have these things in the community. So,
Minus tax increases, what are the internal things that we can do?
So currently, the largest number of openings, the only real openings we have we have a significant number of unfilled but yet funded police positions that are represented here, and this number here. This $6.9 million does fund all of the police positions which were authorized, but not currently being filled by officers. So, Roger, or Chief Wondershare, what is the number that we're currently down in officers?
I believe it's 9, sir.
So that's what I thought. It would be wrong.
Chief
So.
Tenor is out of deployment, so that would be 10.
And one thing we did not try to even figure out in here, we just kind of budgeted for as best we could, was Chief Tinter not here, when's he coming back, partial way through our budget, we don't know. But it doesn't really matter, because like I said, he will be here. You don't want to falsify your budget by saying essentially, we're cutting him, but he'll be back, because that doesn't show you the real projections of where you're going. Linda and I talked about this recently. Best guess, and Connor inquired about it. A cop, especially an in-cop, including pension benefits, healthcare benefits. We don't know if he's got a family. We don't know if he's, of super good health or got pre-existing conditions. So there's a lot of things we don't know. But you add all of that together with your starting salaries and some of the startup costs. We expect that to be about $100,000 a year per cop is what the cost is. So those 9 officers, if we don't hire any of them, there goes most of your deficit, all of it. Now, that's again why I said we're not going to get, as hard as we're trying, we've been trying, we don't hire those officers, we're not going to hire those officers July 1 anyway. This is not going to be as bad just because of that. If we decide to permanently cut those positions or cut a portion of those, certainly what you would then have is a less of a deficit to the tune of $100,000, like I said, per person. I would tell you, there's multiple options, and I've got these scenarios lined out because I want people to kind of think about what those options would be. There's very few that are, silver bullet. Use tax is basically, that fills pretty much most of the gap. Certainly enough that we can, work through it in the future. Maybe a combination of ending the rollback and only budgeting for half of those officers. Combination of, the number of the officers, any level of ending either the rollback by 10 cents or 5 cents or completely. Future changes back to loggers, which I will tell you, one problem with that, of course, is we have a hard enough time getting people to come here anyway. We offered the carrot, and now we're going to take it back away from them. That's that's obviously going to be, I think, a difficult sell. If you're the policymakers, I would tell you probably the best, and it's not a long-term fix, would be to end the rollback. It's the only thing you have control over. Everything else is praying the voters will see the light at the end of the tunnel as a train coming. And cut half of the police positions, because we're not going to hire them this year anyway. If we hire 9 cops this year, that's a miracle. I'd love to see that, but I would love to at least see us get half of those officers. And then you've ended the deficit. At that point, you need to have a conversation with our citizens about, do you want those other 5 officers back? And this is what it's going to take to get them.
That depends on who you ask.
Well, but then that's the voters making a decision, and this is a policy decision that the board and the voters make. There's nothing magical about this. This is just math. This isn't fluff. I will tell you, there was complaints about how budgeting occurred previously. I provided you with hundreds of pages showing every line item, every expenditure, just as best practices of anybody in any city in the St. Louis region would do. There is no way that you're going to shave anywhere near this number. You're not even going to shave the 68,000 out of that. By shaving every training opportunity, transportation opportunity, everything out of this budget, you're not going to get this number. You're not even going to get that number. We put this use tax on the ballot. I've seen a lot of people going back on whether or not they think that this could pass or should pass. Without a concerted effort, without an education, without the voters understanding the seriousness of this, without them being potentially given a if-then scenario, if not this, then this. Or if not this, then this is going to be gotten rid of by property tax increase. If not this, then we can't fund 10 staffing positions. You cannot lay off anybody in public works to fix that number. They're not paid for there. You cannot lay off anybody at the water window. You can't statutorily have no city clerk or finance director. The building department, we're building. Somebody's got to do those inspections. Somebody's got to have P&Z come through. We are going to have a conversation later, which I don't know what that number will be. I can show you what Of course, I need to sign in something.
Sign it.
What did it just do? All right. Well, I think somebody said, it's time, we're done.
Anybody second that?
So, well, pull that. I hope. Just a second. Microsoft 365 just said it didn't want to be here.
No, sir. It's summertime.
They're all.
This sort Just had it on the robbery just 2 days ago. Overall. We got arrested within hours, but it wasn't no robbery. They said he wanted to put guns on 3 guns on him. So those 3 officers were busy, because they had 2 suspects. In the meantime, we had to have county come help us take the calls, because the guys run the call after that.
We should be back in business with this very exciting yet sometimes depressing projections here. This is where, you know, staff can provide you guys with options, but this is why you guys get paid the big bucks. We need to know direction as to how we're going to proceed with further cuts or attempts at revenue. There is an opportunity, and I would say that there's an opportunity. I've not gotten the answer back because I haven't had the call back. Neither is the mayor, but you know, we could potentially get this off the ballot by having Brian file an injunction. So we're not spending the $16,000 on the use tax. Focus on something we can control. We're pushing that back now that we know that there's 4 or 5 constitutional amendments on the ballot and a lot of noise around the issues. That August might not be the best after all, as previously, you know, presumed, because the August ballot typically is less exciting, less cluttered. Not this year. I mean, it's been brought up to me by the mayor and others, and I agree that it is just a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of conversation, just like there was in the April ballot. There's a lot of noise that we're going to have a hard time fighting through in our messaging. And we've got 70 days to educate on this situation. So.
Well, this is the time for the board to represent your citizens and speak up. Budget's one of the most important things that we do.
Would we be able to sit down with leaders of the police department to discuss any type of situation that potentially involves their department to get their thoughts on anything? Because I hate the thought of even thinking about cutting something from a law enforcement or emergency service position, because from just experience, once you cut something, it's hard as heck to get that position back. You know, I've experienced that firsthand, and I would like to meet with them and gather their thoughts about, one, what their experience is in the hiring process. I mean, I can probably assume what they are, because it's everywhere, but two, kind of get their thoughts on this process too, because this would involve them firsthand in their department, and I feel that would be fair to, or unfair of us to make any type of decision without sitting down with leaders of their department to get their thoughts and their opinions on these issues too.
So I did ask our interim chief about giving me an opportunity to either a shift change roll call to talk to some of our officers about the situation. I think one of the things that, well, I'll just tell you, I mean, whether they like it or not, people aren't going to have jobs here. I mean, unless you're retiring here, you may not care. You won't have jobs there if we do nothing. So we have to, I think, get to a point where we agree to do something. And if talking about some of these changes here, might be part of the conversation, get their input, I think that's probably important. Going back to this, and I'll tie this into the passing of the capital.
Hold on for 1 second. If individual aldermen want to talk to the leadership there, obviously, if it's a group of aldermen, we'll have to post it. It's a public meeting and all that.
But I think something like that would be important before we would.
So we do have a chiefs committee that I think would more or less, we try to, it's new, unfortunately, Chief Tinter established it right before he left. But this advisory committee would be kind of a perfect opportunity to try to gain some insight from our staff. I think we talked about, I want to go back to this tax, the sales tax, or the capital improvement sales tax. So, it was talked about, how did we get this capital improvement sales tax passed? We gave the voters something to vote for. Voters don't like being told, I need this money. What do you need it for? Well, for the city, for the budget. What am I getting it for? We have a deficit. Well, maybe we have a spending problem. There's always these conversations. And I understand that. We passed this capital improvement tax because people wanted a pool. And they were told they were going to get some street fixed and some other things done. You gave them something tangible.
The road that was mentioned as well.
Right, yeah, the road work was mentioned, so they knew they were voting for something, that they were going to get something. One thing I would suggest to you is, there's two ways you can approach going out for either a use tax or something else in the future. You either tell them, hey, if you don't pass this, we're going to be forced to cut. Or you cut it and you say, if you pass it, we'll open those positions back up. But at least they know they're getting something for this versus, I don't know what are you going to get? Well, you just need money. I mean, again, even cutting half of those 9 openings doesn't even get us to our deficit number. I would tell you, because these positions, we've been nonstop trying to hire since I got here. We've never got any, we don't have 9 openings because we stopped hiring. Just have not found the right people. We've not gotten the applicants that we need. We've not had people that we felt would be the caliber that we want here in the city of Troy to serve our citizens. So would it hurt to cut 5 out? It would certainly look better in the short term. Is it likely that we could get, I hope that we could get 5 people hired the next year. I really wish we could hire 10 or the 9, but I just don't really see it happening. Unless, Chief Ronkowski is a better salesman than I thought. He might be able to recruit people, that we've been unable to recruit before. So there is that, again, possibility to keep the hiring going, keep the recruitment efforts going, cut the number down. You have the ability again to end the law. And then go have this conversation next year with the voters, whether that's in April or next August. To talk to the voters, well, next August would not be an election year, but next April.
Is the property tax something we can always go, like, readjust back?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years, and we can, that's not something like once we get to that point, we can't, like if we get to that 30, that 32 cents, we can't go back, it's gotta be forward, we can't.
The other thing you can do, just, spitballing here, which I'm sure I'll be crucified on social media for, but I don't care. It's my job to give you information, you get to make the decisions. You could always cut those positions pending the use tax passage next year. You can also raise this, and as part of that use tax authorization, roll this number back. So if you pass this, we roll back this, we restore that, and you're home. And we didn't end up this year with a deficit. We ended up this year where we needed to be. We rolled back your taxes, and we're paying the use tax, which, again, what we talked about yesterday during our goal setting, is not about creating a new tax so much as commerce has evolved. And we've always agreed that sales tax, taxing commerce, is how we are going to fund the city. Now that the commerce is moving online, we have to evolve with the technology because that's where the growth is. We expected, when they approved these sales taxes years ago, they just figured, hey, people are always going to be shopping at Walmart. Didn't know they were going to be shopping at Costco online or other places like that. So.
Those numbers on the property tax, that's based off the
current valuation.
Current that we have right now.
I did update that, I'm pretty sure. So I gave this to the board last year, and then I updated it for the new years and then the new.
And like I said, I'm not big on it, but I understand it's a cost. And my thing is, yes, I mean, 0.17 is great. And like what you had said, I do the voter approve, because the voters did approve of it. You know, this is, they're asking for us what to do and put it at what they asked for at the 0.32 rate. If we do that, how soon would that go into effect?
So when you pay your property tax in December.
Okay.
So we'll set the levy in August, and then they'll, publish the new rates. When you get your tax bills in November, due in December, that's when we'll get it. And we don't have a cash flow problem, so it's not like we need the money today. We just need to collect it in that fiscal year in order to gain, the approximately $424,000. Now, the one thing that I will say that is also important about the property tax issue is that we always complain about all these houses being built, we're not getting anything from it. Especially when they're being built on the south side of town and they drive to Wentzville to shop. Those people are paying about $40 a year in taxes to the city, and they're getting the streets paved, they're getting the streets plowed, they're getting police service, they're getting, all of the city services that anybody else can imagine. And that's all they're paying to the city if they don't shop here. And that's something that, I've talked about previously, diversifying that tax. We saw that pie chart where almost 75% of it's your sales tax, and then a good chunk of it's being paid by, Toyota and a few other guys through the utility tax. And then a tiny little bit's being paid for by the residents, through their residents. Anybody shopping in town, residents or not, is paying into that.
Can I, maybe I'm just slow. I've done a few, so a lot of stuff good information, a lot of information. The rollback tax, this is new, actually new. I didn't really understand a lot of this. And the use tax, am I against? I need to be better educated. And the noise on the August ballot is further down. The cuts, and Alderman Gephardt brought up a good, what the feedback from law enforcement is. 10 positions, as Roger indicated, if you count Chief Tinter and do we cut 4 or 5? Is it tonight before we walk out of here, we need to make this, because I got a lot of stuff going on, or is that the expectation, or is this a workshop where we're kind of soaking it up? And
so I think a lot of it we need to soak up, but we also need to schedule another meeting. We do need to talk about capital improvements. We've yet to even talk about things like all the sewer lines that need to be replaced. Those come out of different funds, but there are going to be some prioritization there.
There's could be multiple options, and I took a lot of notes, and
the one thing I would like you, if we're going to go down this route, and I almost feel like we need to do today, I couldn't get an answer about the timing, but if I can save you the $16,000 of putting this on the ballot. Darn green energy stuff.
Cost a couple $1,000 to fix this problem.
Yeah, I'm using my personal laptop so that I don't have to buy a city laptop.
Thank you, James. Real public servant.
Guess what? This is not my hocus pocus sticker on here. That's my wife. It's not my jam.
Sure.
So, actually never seen the movie.
Oh,
I watched.
shame.
Man, when they turn it on, I walk out of the room. So the use tax, so if I can save us $16,000 by saying this is not where we're going in August, we're going to come up with another option. The only thing I don't know is how fast I would need to get Brian over to the courthouse to file an injunction. We've missed the date for me to just walk up to Mike Kruger and say, hey, pull this off the ballot. But, it doesn't mean you can't get it off the ballot. They haven't printed anything, but it still requires a court order. I don't know, Judge. I don't know if you've ever dealt with this before.
No, not particularly.
So I just know the longer you wait, the harder and more expensive potentially it is to get it off the ballot.
I'll tell you, I gave James earlier in the week, I guess, last week maybe, concerned about the ability of this use tax to pass when the governor put the potential large-scale change of how the state taxes on the ballot. I think that's going to cause a lot of consternation.
Yeah.
Good or bad, whichever way you look at it, but still, ours is going to be lower on the ballot, and voter fatigue is a real thing.
And I am not against the use tax, I just know, I'll do a Dennis here. Back in 2006. Some of you people in this room we passed it.
Some of them weren't here.
We passed a quarter cent sales tax for children's services funds called Putting Kids First, but it was a truly education and a strategy of, too much noise on the ballot and when to put it on the ballot. And I'm not, what's it gonna cost? What is the money to give that voter the information they need to say, well, this is a good thing. I don't know that we can do that in a couple months, especially after April, where 71% said no.
And you've already got so many people.
That's my concern, but I'm not against it as we kind of look at options as we move to November or next April or next August, so.
Well, one of my concerns is with that figure that's up there, based on 15,000 people in the city, and that's just 15,000 people, that's man, woman, child, infant, the whole bunch. I think it averages out to about $53 a person. They have to buy the taxes online, have to buy and accumulate that much taxes online for that figure to take place. Now, I just don't see that happening.
Well, I mean, but like, somebody buys a car online from Illinois.
Well, if you buy a car in Illinois, you don't have to pay.
I'll open up my Amazon account, it's been thousands of dollars to go online. It's been $700 on the gun recently. So, I mean, yes, I guarantee you, there is this much money, or pretty close to. I can tell you that every estimate that I've ever seen has been beat by 50%.
I was gonna say Moscow's, I think their first year was at least 35% higher than what they were told.
Yeah.
If it'll help you out any on the car sales, I think in the state of Wyoming, you can have your car registered in Wyoming, drive it anywhere in the United States, buy a one-time license and pay no taxes.
Only I was John Dutton.
Because I think they estimated if, like, say, the county put it on, it passed, it'd be like $2.5 million for the whole county, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
Chief, to go back and revisit the conversation regarding officers and stuff like that, what's our current starting wage for guys? I'm not talking about cutting their wages at all.
I believe it's around 62.
So we start at 62. Could we, I'm looking at our last packet and the chief's report from Chief Tinter, and I know right now we're down 6 patrol officers, more or less, 1 vacancy.
2 detectives.
Yeah, so 6 regular patrol officers. I'm curious if we were to raise our guys' starting wage up to $3,000 per patrol officer and then cut 4 positions, what that would look like on the budget. And I know you and I talked about it a little bit. I just want to see if we can get estimates like that for future meetings.
Well, we said it would be about $117,000
Yeah.
that would cost.
Yeah.
We'll save $300,000.
Yeah.
So we're gonna save 300, cost 117, so.
Say about 200,000. But yeah, my thing is, I mean, we're struggling with recruitment, I know, so figure we raise their salaries a bit, maybe we can staff at least 1 position per shift, because right now we're down, 2 of the shifts are missing 2 regular patrol guys, 1 of the shifts, or 2 of the others are missing 2. I figured if we can at least fill to where we have, I think that it would be 4 per rotation, more or less, because you'd have 3 regular patrol guys, 1 sergeant. I'd like to see what that looks like. If it saves us a few $100,000 and gives our guys that are already here a little bit of a pay bump and incentivizes more people to come here for a pay raise.
Yeah, if you do that, you're gonna have to probably alter the entire structure then, because you're gonna have.
Well, so that's why I'm curious if we can get, if we can get the numbers for it. And I know we did like a brief little, like a quick little calculator over up there earlier, but if we can get an exact by our next budget meeting.
Next week.
Yeah.
With all that being said, the reduction of officers on the street, I think it was 2 years ago, Jim, that they had brought up, it took like 17 to 18 minutes to answer a call if they're on this end of town and have to go to that end of town. Am I correct? Something like that. And that could be a life or death situation.
Yeah.
By reducing the officers, you also increase the level of stress. Is that something we want to do?
Well, I mean, in the long run, you'd have, like I said, if we were to increase the starting wage, perhaps we'd actually fill some of the vacancies. Because I'm not talking about eliminating every single vacancy. You would take away 4 of the vacancies, and then the 2 rotations that are currently down a guy have better chance of getting those positions filled versus leaving them vacant.
I think the mental stress part of it is
Well,
I mean,
work
we're
overload.
well, we already don't have the guys anyway, so I mean, at this point, we only stand to benefit if we increase their wages.
That would be a benefit. We're also in danger of losing more people. Retention is going to be a big issue over the next year. All the other departments, they're playing a game of rob your neighbor. They keep raising their pay to steal the good officers away from all the other departments. It's just what they need to do to survive.
Yeah.
And the officers eventually, when they can't get time off and they can't enjoy their families, and they're working so much just to cover the minimum manpower on the street, and which they have to do because it gets dangerous not only for the community, but it's dangerous for the officers too. So all that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and we would save money on hiring new people because ultimately the cost of hiring someone new is far more than just retaining someone. Even I would figure even with the pay bump, but that's what I don't know those exact numbers. I wouldn't even know the algorithm we use to find those exact numbers. I just would like to see if we can get a good estimate by next meeting or whatever.
We could probably give you a good estimate tomorrow or Monday. When I say good estimate, it's a very much an estimate.
Yeah,
There's
no, I
nothing really good
understand.
about it. I mean, in the sense that we don't know who we're hiring.
Yeah.
If we get a kid out of the academy, or if we get an opportunity to hire a veteran, and then we do have a policy that we pay them based on some years of service. We do credit that, so they won't be starting out at a lower level anyway. They'll start out at a higher level. So there's obviously that uncertainty there.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to we hire a guy with 5 kids and we hire a single guy. That's a huge difference on our healthcare costs. So all things that we can't control for, but we'll.
Do you guys have candidates in the process right now?
Honestly, it's really hard to get good veteran officers. Right now, we have a cadet he's graduating in July, I believe. We're gonna hire him. He's already been through the process we've been through. We have another interview this Friday with a veteran officer. But again, we're not gonna lower our standards for the people because of our pay. Like I said, they can go to Winsville to get, $10 more an hour.
Times have definitely changed since you and I started, hasn't it?
Yeah, $14,000 a year is what I make money. A year. So, yeah.
One of the things we did talk about yesterday, I'll remind you when we did our SWOT analysis, was looking at the other factors that we can try to help both with retention and recruitment, improving the quality of work, the work atmosphere, certainly the facilities upstairs, so that when we get people that are interested in this place, that they'll be interested in coming here, regardless, even for $2 an hour more. Do you want to work in a place that looks like upstairs? We'll have that conversation during capital improvements, but I think that will also be a significant part of our recruiting effort and retention effort. People who've been living in that will certainly notice and feel the difference of, wow, I work in a nice place, and this is worth staying in. You may not want to stay here for $2 more an hour when you can go to Warren County for $7 more an hour.
Yeah. We talked about that last night, how we're not like other, it's not how we're like, it's how we're not like. Ryan and I were just talking about that at the break in terms of city employee recruitment, you know, how is Troy different? We're not always gonna be like the Winslow or like, you know, but what stands out, and I just think that's a longer term recruitment strategy that ties into everything we're trying to accomplish here.
Really, we need to, what I need to know from you guys, I'm not gonna hold you over the barrel on everything. Is there an appetite to do something different for August? And me get Brian going on what that would take?
Yeah, I would hold off on.
And if we do, then recognize you've now forced yourself into other options, which is fine. But I mean, if we don't think this is a viable option, we put our eggs in another basket.
Yeah, and then revisit that in the future, and
I think
There's 3 hidden ons from this side, what about this side?
just see,
I don't think it needs to be on August ballot.
yeah, save that 16 this year and
Yeah, well, actually, it'll be a executive decision. I'll tell him to drop it and then we'll have to vote on that.
I think one call.
Do we have to vote on it or can I just?
we would need I mean, it was passed.
Right.
Our former city attorney's here. For a long time ago. Judge, I mean, do you think, we passed an ordinance putting it on the ballot, would we need to repeal that ordinance?
Yeah.
So what I would suggest is, we're going to need to have another quick meeting.
Tomorrow.
You can't get it posted by tomorrow. Well, we have to post it by
Oh, yeah,
business
yeah,
today.
Monday.
We could probably do it Monday. Quite frankly, we could even do it by Zoom or Teams. We have the capability of doing it if you have it. It would literally be a very quick, but probably the most, should it be a motion to reconsider the ordinance or just an ordinance actually repealing the previous?
Well, again, I don't understand what
I know.
Brian's feet.
Trust me, he's homesick, he doesn't be texting him.
No,
Probably just an ordinance to repeal.
I do an ordinance to repeal that. And that's something that you can take to the judge
Yeah.
also, to show.
I mean, Brian's not gonna get this filed tomorrow anyway.
And with that, we won't owe the 16,000 or whatever that it costs to put it on the ballot.
Well, that's gonna
Well,
be up to the judge.
The only thing we'd be on the hook for, I would imagine, because they're not having, they haven't printed any ballots,
Yeah.
they haven't done anything, would be the cost of filing. So I'm gonna verify that hopefully with Mike Kruger tomorrow.
I'd say, could you,
He'll try, I'll try to get a hold of him, but somebody's gonna get a hold of him.
so James, could you verify it by that meeting? Because as much as I really don't think it should be on the ballot, I don't want to pay more money just to find out, oh, you still owe all this other money.
Absolutely, no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, we would realize this.
Because that money is the actual printing.
Yeah.
So highly doubtful,
I
but
get it.
we'll make sure.
Yeah, I just want to verify.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say though, even if we had to eat some costs, eating that cost is probably better than going and getting creamed another time on the ballot.
Yeah.
Especially if your intention is to revisit it.
Yeah.
So, I know Mr. Rears would love to see a fourth time's charm in his next editorial, but you know, we don't want him to write that story. So we're gonna shoot for Monday?
Yeah.
Are we okay with that on the calendar?
Yep.
What about next week for a conversation about
Yeah, we need another budget.
this and then also capital improvements? Because we'll need to start finalizing what the plan is, so we know.
Possibility to do it like we did the workshop and the budget right after, like the next day.
I mean, Monday,
And then
Monday and
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Could we
Yeah.
do it Monday and Tuesday would work best for me?
Is that enough time for everybody to come? Because next meeting, we'll have to have some concrete ideas of which way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll have the whole weekend to brainstorm.
on what day?
Monday or Tuesday, what's that?
I will not be Monday.
Special meeting for repealing and then continuing this budget conversation.
As long as we have a quorum for Monday, we'll be okay.
Correct.
But he can't do Tuesday, so.
Yeah, I can't do Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
I could do the vote by, or if we did the vote, I could do that, like, if we did that earlier than, like, if we did that like 4:30 or 5. But I work 5:30 both nights.
Okay. What about Wednesday? Well, Monday, if we don't want to push through the budget, because we won't be here for a budget conversation, we could have a quick meeting on Monday. Would Wednesday work for budget meeting?
Yep.
Yes.
We're not in the crunch for that, another
Yeah.
budget push.
I'm not a huge fan of Wednesday.
Yeah. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna send this out to you before I leave tonight. So you guys can go home and I'll send you the document, so that way you can play with it, because the other documents I have blocked. So you guys don't accidentally change something that we've already inputted.
Yeah, we can have.
But you guys can input these numbers and see where that gets us. If we're not, like I said, if we're not doing this, you know, I would like us to talk about what combination of things we're looking to do. We can plan that out over the course of the upcoming year, both with what we're expending, and then if we're going to be looking at some sort of revenue enhancement. I think, to Alderman Gephardt's point, if you mess with loggers, at this point, you're undercutting what Connor's trying to do by giving them a raise in the first place. I don't know that I'd love to give them a raise. I'd love to give, well, we are giving everybody a raise. We did put our 2.5%.
Yeah, there is built-in raises for all.
So there is built-in raises in here.
Yes.
We did not, you know, that is an option also too. You know, if you remove raises, we can take out $72,000.
No. Yeah,
I agree, I'm just telling you.
So make sure you understand.
Hey, that's my money too, bro.
Yeah, no, I did.
I'd rather keep it too. So, yes.
Let's wait another week before the pitchforks come.
Yeah, you guys know your addresses are public record. So, yeah, you know, just so it's clear, we have already considered 2.5% raises in these numbers, so. And we've done that every year. That's always an option. And we have suspended raises in the past, but
7 years. 7 years.
we did it for 7 years?
Yeah.
Straight?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah, you have to account for inflation. There's no way in the world.
Unacceptable.
I mean, that'll affect retention, so.
Can't give anything for 2.
It's a long time.
I think we got 75 cents this year.
Yeah, the last county raise, I got a everyone got 75-cent raise across the board. It came out like 1.62%.
Last year we got 50 cents.
Alderman Gephardt, what time you said you'd be at work, 5:30?
Yeah, on Monday.
Monday, so can we do it at 5?
Yeah.
Can you like, just come here in your dress blues?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Well, I signed up to work off duty for Bible school, so.
State law says we have to be able to see your face.
So we'll plan on a 5 o'clock, quick one ordinance meeting on Monday.
James will send you a link.
To that?
No,
For Zoom.
for Zoom.
I'll be out of town, so I'll be.
Okay, yeah. So I'll send you a Teams link.
And for the next workshop, I'll probably need to do Zooms all week next week because of other things.
Yeah, well, let's try to get the baby coming.
Yeah, on Wednesday, so.
What if there's 2 of them in there? You didn't know about it?
That would be a surprise to everybody.
He resigns.
Hey, they sleep a lot at first, so you'll be fine. Just
First couple months.
you're good.
That's all.
I can't wait.
So what time would be best then on Wednesday? Caitlin's trying to keep me in line here.
Honestly, I prefer,
She left her stick on.
we do business hours, honestly. That's like business.
That works for us.
Business hours? I mean,
No.
I'm on paternity leave at that
What time-
time, so.
What time do you, she's not going in for a,
We have no idea yet.
okay, so this is just due date.
I just know she's not in labor right now. That's all I'm waiting for. So.
5:30, 6 o'clock work.
Yeah.
5:30, you want to try to get this done early as possible, 5:30?
Does that work for everybody
Yeah.
earlier?
And I think the goal of the Wednesday meeting at 5:30 is we're
taking time to digest everything that we've just talked about and
Well-
percolate it.
And we'll talk-
As we go into the new stuff as
And
well.
we'll talk about capital, now, remember, capital improvements and stuff like that, they come out of different funds.
Okay.
So we're gonna go over what the big projects are for each department, right?
Yep.
We'll also need some guidance on where we're going forward here with the general fund.
Okay.
So this, if we can hammer out the guidance early, we can run through the projects. We're just gonna put those projects, prioritize them based on the recommendations from Public Works, Sewer, Water, what we've got queued up. That's not, we don't have any big asks, we don't have a lot of cop cars being requested this year. We don't have, a lot of that stuff going on. We can talk about it later, but I suggested possibly getting rid of my car allowance and moving to having a city vehicle, which would help, because my car allowance comes out of this, city vehicle comes out of capital improvement. We can talk about that if you wanted, well, whatever works. I'm just saying, if you want to save money off one, you can pay that. It's a very small amount, but.
Well, we could just discontinue that amount.
Sure.
And there's a white Explorer sitting out at the city shed that,
It's the beauty of having a contract. Take away my car allowance.
We'd have to renegotiate that.
That's right. We can negotiate lots of things.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Anything else from city staff?
No.
I'll take a motion to close the workshop.
So moved.
A motion to second, all in favor?